I have a mini brewery in my fridge in the garage, so I have all the cans.
Is that the best part about owning a brewery, is that you just get to drink whatever you want, whenever you want?
No, I'd say the best part of the owning a brewery is really the people that I like. That's not.
Is that a bullshit answer?
No, it's not a
I
bullshit
think it's because
answer.
we're on a podcast.
No, and
the
like
podcast answer.
one of the things that I've really enjoyed, I don't even know if we're recording, so I don't really
We
care. One of the things I've loved the most about owning the brewery and being it is really sharing like what we've been able to create and effectively art with people and being able to see them enjoy it. And like I could have continued to make beer in my basement in my kitchen that I enjoyed just to drink on my own if that's what I wanted to do. So I really wanted to share it with other people, and that's one of the best things of, owning a brewery to me anyway, is being able to serve that across the bar, see the smiles, see people enjoy it, and sometimes see people not enjoy it, but like overwhelming, it's more enjoying than not enjoying. So that's really been the big part to me about owning a brewery that I've enjoyed.
I, for one, like the beer.
Is that so? How did you all get started? Were you home brewing?
It's Kevin's fault.
It's always Kevin's fault. Yes.
Nah, so I was living in Charlotte at the time, and I came home for Christmas, late one year, and Kev was like, "Hey, I got a homebrew kit for Christmas. Try this. I made it." And I cracked open. I'm like, "Oh, you made a beer? Interesting." Drank it. It's terrible. So I was like,
though.
"Cool, yeah."
It was the right time of our life that it was alcohol.
Yeah, these are the Keystone days, so like it got me drunk, so it was fine. And then I went back home and was kind of like, that was actually kind of cool. Like, you made something. I like making shit. Sorry if we can't say shit on your podcast.
I think I've already sworn at least twice already.
You can say whatever you want.
And
Explicitly.
it was neat. It was interesting. Got the gears turning, and then shortly thereafter, I ended up moving back to Buffalo and started homebrewing myself. And then we got a little obsessed, and we were brewing every week. We were going back and forth between Buffalo and Syracuse, and
you had a lot of friends that were drinking for free. At
10
that
gallons
point.
a week. Yeah,
we had a lot of friends drinking for free at that point
of our lives.
House parties like 4 or 5 days a week, and by parties I mean
4
or 5 people, and it's not exactly it's not like the house was full of people or anything like that. But
what kind of beers were you making?
Oh, everything.
Anything,
I mean, this was what, probably 2008, 2009. And, it was that sort of the tail end of kind of like the IBU wars and stuff. So, we were making blistering IPAs, but, amber ales were still cool. And, we were doing kind of whatever we could. It was the beginning stages of a hobby for us.
the West Coast was really everything coming from the West Coast, the Bear Republics, the Stones, like that was that era that
still
like,
hard to get, quote unquote.
Yeah, you could go to, RIP to both these places, but Blue Tusk and Jay Ryan's, and you'd find crazy stuff from the West Coast. Like the East Coast really hadn't started growing yet with its own style, so it was all the California and the Oregon beers and the Washington beers that were really coming here, and everybody was chasing them at that point.
Yeah, we're making a lot of that, and then time goes by, and your obsession becomes a full-on hobby, and you dedicate time and money and expense to it, and then one day we found a 3.5 barrel professional, quote unquote professional brew system for sale from shout out to Bonfire Brewing in Colorado.
Eagle, Colorado.
Yep. And
small town. I expected that to be a lot bigger of a town. I had no idea, but
very small town.
I knew what I had recognized that name. I expected a little bit bigger than like what. I mean, it was
one street.
Yeah, it was.
I'm not sure
like
they had a
Syracuse,
stoplight. Yeah,
near North Syracuse Main Street type of thing. But like that was a great little town.
Coffee shop was nice. And so anyway, we flew out there and we bought it. We said, hey, this isn't a crazy investment. This isn't super expensive. So we'll buy this used equipment. If we ever do it, we'll do it. So after that, when you put down a couple of $1,000s, you're like, oh, I guess I have to kind of get serious about this now. So Kevin went to the Siebel Institute of Brewing Technology in Chicago, and I'm a bit more bookish, so I just started continuing reading about brewing, kind of everything I could find. Had a couple of industry friends, so did a couple of internships brewing. Thank you, Christopher. And just decided to make the jump, and I think I wrote our first business plan in 2009, 2010, and then took us,
So long ago.
full 5 years to find a place and really make it happen. So.
Yeah, it took a long time to find a building, and you wouldn't think that it would take a long time to find a building, but it was crazy the number of buildings we looked at. And
We looked at everything in Syracuse, I think.
one of the big things was a trench drain because we didn't want to dig our own.
We didn't have any money, you know. I mean, like
Yeah.
putting in a trench drain is like $20,000 at least, and I'm like,
Or jackhammering for days on your own.
right, or I got to cut the concrete myself, and I don't want to do that either. So
And still have to pay a plumber to tie it all into something. So
so we didn't really have to start a brewery, you should be well capitalized and experienced, and we were neither, of course. So we started the way most people do.
What's
in
the
any
old saying?
business.
If you want to make a
If you want to make a small fortune in brewing, start with a big one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which holds true as far as I know
Yes, to
across
this
the
day.
board.
Bud has the same thing for restaurants. If you want to make $1 million in a restaurant, start with 2.
Start with
something
2.
like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Why is that? Because in beer, I mean, the cost is so minimal, isn't it? I mean, it's like, not if you factor time, but just if you factor in your raw ingredients, a beer could cost you like less than $1, correct?
Yeah, it's that time thing you left out.
Yeah, stainless steel is not cheap.
Yes.
And you're talking normally to enter, and it's gotten better in this state now, but normally to enter the business, you need to be fully approved. So you have to have a location and you have to get all your licenses in order. It's gotten better with the state now that you can get temporary permits and stuff like that. But back when we were starting,
It was a year.
you had to have basically a year's worth of rent in your back pocket
We did.
because you needed
Well, we
lease
didn't have
signed,
it, but we used it. Yeah.
in order to have your paperwork in. And that was really your big barrier to entry. So if you had a big building that cost you $5,000 a month and it took you a year to get licensed, you're out a big chunk of change that you're trying to make up the second you can open.
Yeah, and that holds true for us too. We bought this cheap little system, and we had to pay, multiple thousands of dollars to get the building ready to go, and there wasn't even that much to do.
Shipping. Get all that stuff back here.
Oh well, but even after that cost that we had already spent, we had to spend a lot of money to get our building ready to wait an entire year to be licensed.
Yep.
So it was, every month we're going further and further into debt. The bank was great and helped us with a loan then, but it was like, all right, cool. So we
Parents helped as
started,
well.
we started
Family.
this basically as cheaply as we possibly could. And we're still going in,
Yeah.
10 times over capital in debt.
And I think that's why you're starting to see so many breweries open up on their own property.
Oh yeah.
In their own barns. Because, you can modify a barn, at least it's still your property at the end of the day.
Well, farms are different too. They don't have to do a lot of the stuff, inspections and stuff that
It's very true.
standard retail businesses have to go through, which is, whatever, that's fine.
Like actual farms or just farm license?
Actual farms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
no, not the farm
working
license,
farm.
actual working farms.
Yep.
They just have a little more clearance to do work themselves. Electrical, plumbing, etc.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's wild because you do have to have, they require you to hire professionals for some of that stuff.
Oh yeah, it's all got to be licensed and bonded, insured, all that jazz. And yeah, I could run that plumbing in 2 minutes. Why can't I just go do it?
Yeah.
Oh no, where it has to be air tested and pressure tested and all this. And look, all of that's important.
It's a
Right.
business. There's
And-
people walking in. We understand. A lot
Right,
of
it comes
people
down to
could-
safety and
Yeah.
not-
the integrity of the businesses around you.
Somebody else's
if your
building.
plumbing leaks in your house, it's your house's problem.
Yeah.
If your business's plumbing leaks,
Yeah.
it's everyone's problem. So definitely good and makes sense, but it is one of those things when you're coming into business, you're like, oh God, how many more thousands of dollars do I got to lay out now?
And I think that kind of changes from county to county as well. I know, Onondaga County is there's a lot of red tape in Onondaga County, but there's a lot of red tape in every city. As you start to get further out into the country, smaller towns, things like that, it mimight be a little bit easier. I can't speak to any of that, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
I never did it.
yeah, I never had to go that route yet. So
Yeah, it wasn't I don't want to just shit on opening a business, but yeah, that was the hardest part about it was sort of going through everything, and you know, we didn't come in blind to it. Like, you know, I had reached out to the permits office and sort of all the different departments of people that were going to need to do inspections and stuff, and had everything ready, and you know, my I's dotted and my T's crossed and stuff, and it still was a difficult process. So
But your stamp wasn't wet enough on that from the architect, so no, you gotta try again.
stop, you're giving me flashbacks. Yeah, lots of stamp drawings.
What was it? What was the brewery landscape like when you first opened up?
It was really just so Empire and Middle Ages were here. If you want to, the Syracuse Suds was downtown, still open at the time. They weren't really making a lot of their own beer. They had some on tap, but they weren't really making it. Eastwood beat us to the punch, right?
Yes,
And
he did.
315 beat us to the punch.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't beat us by
315 was
much.
pretty close.
I think WT technically beat us by like what, a month or two?
Yeah, because we were at their bar because I had emailed them.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
'cause
and
we
Mike
were at
was
the old farm.
it was at Mike's house, and he's
was
sitting there
talking
serving
about
his beer
us.
like these weird Willow Rock guys emailed. I don't know why Mike talks like that. He doesn't, but
That's
these
so
Willow
weird,
Rock guys
Mike.
emailed me. I'm like, hi, I'm at the bar.
We're over here.
How you doing?
And that's how we met Rich and Mike
Yep,
for the first time
yep,
as industry friends.
yep.
What was it? I mean, you know, a lot has changed. I mean, that was what, 7 years ago?
Yeah,
So a lot's changed in the local craft
It's
beers.
technically 8 years ago because that was even before.
oh shit, it's 2023.
Yeah, I
What
think.
up?
I mean, it took us a year. We were in that building for a year, and we might not even have had the building at that point, but maybe we did.
Yeah, no, and you know what? So I think we opened. You know, I'm sure you can attest to this. Syracuse is a city that's a little bit. Not, I'm not going to say behind the times, but we follow the curve generally. You know, we're not. We're fashionably late to the party sometimes. So I feel like, you know, nationwide.
Sounds like me.
Nationwide, we were no, you're just late. Nationwide, we were at the tail end of the big brewery growth in
Yeah.
Syracuse, and we were still seeing, you know, after we opened, a lot of breweries have continued to open.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, we're getting to the tail end of the brewery opening boom in Syracuse, and I think it's made the craft beer landscape phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, there's some great beer coming out of every place in Syracuse. Everybody's got kind of a specialty to really for a go-to. I would enjoy like it may not be home runs across the board, but it's not like everybody's striking out on tap after tap after tap.
yeah, I think if you know, if this is what the beer scene looked like in 2008, 2009 when we were thinking about this, it would have been a much different conversation. Like, all right, you know,
Probably be opening a bar.
right?
sell
Yeah,
all
just
this
for all
beer.
the good beer, and it was like, you know, when we opened, there was just a couple, and you know, hey, we can be kind of the new fresh face, you know, because at that point the two breweries in town were both 20 years old, or well, a little, 15 years old.
And like Middle Ages has made leaps and bounds, but Middle Ages when we were opening was
Just
still-
the OG
Yeah,
English.
it was OG.
Yeah.
There was a lot of English styles. They weren't making the hazies. They weren't doing what they're doing now, and they've made huge changes to what they were doing. And I love all of them. New tap room, everything. But yeah, at
Like,
the time,
you know, when they're just, you know, you get a growler, do your samples,
yeah, and then you were out the
do
door.
your
Like,
samples
that was
twice
your
if
thing.
you know you were good with the bartender. And
Yeah, and you could get in Middle Ages was everywhere around town too. So
Yeah.
you didn't really think, hey, I want a Middle Ages beer, I got to go to Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Now you want a Middle Ages beer, you want to go there. Not that you can't find them everywhere around town as well, but like now you're like, hey, let's go to the Middle Ages tap room.
Yeah.
And that's kind of changed a lot too since when we opened, because a lot at the time it was just like, let's just go to the bar, and now you're like, hey, I want to drink some of their beer. Let's go go to that place.
I wonder how much the people in general in Syracuse think that way, because I don't. Well, I guess I do kind of think that way, but I don't really look at beer. Not that I'm an avid, consumer, especially since the babies come around. I haven't been drinking as much beer. I've been drinking a lot more bourbon and doing a lot of Coke. No, but
And by Coke, you mean cola, right?
yeah, to stay awake, more caffeine.
But I don't. So I haven't been drinking as much beer, but I would typically only be getting beer from either, like, I'm gonna get Bud Light because I'm at Wegmans and I want to get something cheap to have today, or I would be going to Willow Rock because I work for you guys, or I'd be going to Buried Acorn because I like Tim. And
It's
even
hard to not like Tim.
Blink twice if you need help. Do you really like Tim?
there would be times with friends where we would say, "Hey, let's go here," but very rarely was that like, "Oh, I really want a Willow Rock beer. Let's go specifically to Willow Rock." I'd be thinking of,
Yeah,
who around town
so
has it.
I'll put it in your restaurant tour mind. So like, I view that, and I think a lot of people view it like, if I Grubhub a 3-1 fried sandwich, is that the authentic 3-1 fried experience?
No.
Right. And I think that we're lucky in Syracuse to have a lot of great bars that will give you the same authentic Willow Rock experience with our products. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I think the way beer has become now, and especially with like, people doing like one-offs and stuff like that, is you go to the place to get the best experience possible. And you're seeing brewery tap rooms become a place beyond just the pint. Mm-hmm. So whether it's the events that people are doing, the comfort level that people have, we've hosted everything from baby showers to, political office events to like, we host our neighborhood association. Like, these are things that
We had an Irish wake.
we did have an Irish wake. That was, whoa. That's
That
how
was-
I want to
that
go.
was
That's how
Irish.
I want to go.
That was Irish. I'll tell you that.
And it's just one of those things that, breweries have become community spaces to a degree. And I think you see that in, beer drinkers, but you also see it a little bit wider than that too. So I think, for the authentic beer drinker who wants the best experience, you want to go there. And maybe not every time, you know what I mean? Like, you're not making that choice like, all right, I want a beer. I must go here and then here and then here, because, that's a lot of miles on the car or the Uber or whatever. But yeah, I think mostly people looking for that experience, they're going to come, they're going to spend, they're not just there. It's not like going to the bar for a pint and then getting back home real quick. It's the person that's coming in and saying, all right, I'm going to spend a minute, have a couple of beers, try some stuff I haven't had. And
Yeah, and I mean, to speak to that point too, I feel like, and like I almost see this on a regular basis, especially when I'm bartending on like the weekends. A lot of people, when they're day drinking and going around sampling at brewery, they're doing their little brewery tour. To them, it's not really drinking. They're going to sample a bunch of stuff, and obviously, like, the end game might not have been to get drunk, but they're probably going to get drunk if they go to enough places. But it is to sample a bunch of stuff, support local in that type of sense. And I just get the feeling that a lot of people think that it's not drinking. Like, it's not going to the bar and hammering 27 Bud Lights and doing 6 shots.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a night on the town of where they're drinking. They're going out, they're sampling a couple of things, they're kind of coasting through life, and they're just kind of enjoying themselves versus, all right, we're going to, Applebee's, and we're going to drink 4 beers and do 2 shots. It's bad.
what's the most amount that you've ever drank at an Applebee's?
What's the most
Yeah,
amount I've
like
ever
just
drank?
the
at
the
Applebee's?
most turnt you got at an Applebee's. Sorry, I'm asking the questions now.
I actually, I don't know what his answer is going to be, but
What's yours?
I have a good answer. But
So, me and my wife used to get done bartending and go to Applebee's because it was one of the very few kitchens that were still open.
Would they line you shots up as
They
soon as
would
you
not
walked in the
line
door?
our shots up. We normally were going to bed afterwards, so we would take advantage of their half-price appetizers in house,
All right, this is boring. Anthony, what do you got?
and then do like. I think I had 3 beers at most.
All right,
at an
yeah, no, but
Applebee's.
all right, nobody
right.
wants 3 beers at an Applebee's. Story.
I might be. Well, no, I've probably had about 6 or 7 plus 2 shots. I used to work in Buffalo.
Yeah, all right.
As a regional sales manager for Metro Mattress, and
Applebee's was the place.
That's
to
the
hang
sleep
out.
superstore.
it was this, yeah.
Well, Applebee's can be too after that amount of alcohol.
But it was a very stupid decision in my life. But I was like the regional trainer living here in Syracuse. I just started dating Rebecca. I think we had been dating for like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month. And then my boss was like, hey, this position opened up in Buffalo. It paid a ton of money. And he was like, do you want it? I was like, yes. And I didn't think through, wait a minute. I just bought a house. I just started dating this girl. How am I gonna commute every day? When I move out there, how long am I gonna? They couldn't tell me how long I was gonna be out there. They're like, you might be out there for a month, you might be out there for a year, and we won't know until you get out there. And I'm like, okay. So I was staying in either hotels, or if I could like negotiate a good rate at a hotel, or I was like staying at Airbnbs. And
I love that you were pulling like the press credential at hotels like before Eat Local. That's great.
yeah, I had Eat Local. There we go.
Bless you.
Thank you. I had Eat Local at the time, which was another consideration I didn't take into it because it was Eat Local CNY then. So I was like, what am I going to do in Buffalo? But yeah, so I would often stay, I forget, it was like a somewhat of a nice hotel, like a Holiday Inn or something. It wasn't a Holiday Inn, but something like that in Niagara Falls. And if the rooms were, and I was there in the wintertime, keep that in mind. So I went there in I went there in December. So if the rates were like $35 a night, $40 a night, I would stay there. If they weren't, I would go get this Airbnb all the way up in Lewiston.
Oh, that is so far away.
Right on the border.
That is not even close.
And like the next exit it's like Lewiston in Canada. And so I would stay at this Airbnb, beautiful home. There was this woman who was a former, like, very successful architect who was training to become a nun. That's what I said.
Okay.
And so she had this gorgeous
Sheets write a book.
she had this gorgeous 5-bedroom home, and she would Airbnb like 4 of the rooms out. And so I would stay there some nights, and if I could get the hotel. But anyways,
where's the Applebee's coming to this?
So I would.
Right.
This is a long story to get to Applebee's.
I would close out the stores, like 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Sure.
Do my numbers, and then I would go to the Applebee's in Niagara Falls.
Oh, and that's
pretty much. If I didn't stay in the hotel, which had a restaurant and a bar in the lobby, then I was going to Lewiston. Then I would go to the Applebee's on my way up to Lewiston, and I'd get like half-priced apps and some
it's all about half-price apps, man. The apps come back. Because without those half-price apps, you're not drinking that much.
You're not pounding.
If you're gonna eat one burger and some fries and maybe one app,
did you save all the Buffalo Metro mattresses? Let's wrap this up.
I actually did not save all the Buffalo Metro mattresses. I think things were worse off.
Well, not for effort. So
yeah,
good job on. Wow, that's.
It was
Applebee's did all the Metro mattresses in. I feel like Metro Mattress now has a case against Applebee's to get some money back.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That's actually, it was either Applebee's or Five Guys. That's one of the reasons. So when I first met Rebecca, I had just come off of like a 7-month, I was training, I was convinced, I even signed up for it. I was going to do this bike race, the Trans-America bike race.
Oh, that's a big one, bud.
Yeah. You start in Astoria, Oregon. You no crew or anybody to help you. Self-supported bike race across the country. You end in Yorktown, Virginia. And I had
Are you much of a biker?
So at the time I was. I was heavy into it. I was cycling like 50 miles a week, which isn't a lot for like a cyclist, for somebody's really into it. But actually, I was maybe doing about 100 a week, because on weekends I would go on long rides. And at one point, I was going to do like this test ride where I took a week's vacation. I was going to cycle from my house up around Lake Ontario, so up through Canada, come back through Buffalo, and I was going to take the week to do it.
I think that's called the Shit I Wish I Had a Boat tour.
Yeah.
Is that ferry still active from Toronto to Rochester?
Yeah,
that's the name of that tour.
Wait, there's a ferry from Toronto to Rochester?
There was. I think it ran like 1 or 2 times or something like that.
I don't know anything about that.
I remember that was supposed
they called
to
the Edmund Fitzgerald? Or?
I don't know. That was supposed to open when we were in college, I believe, at Oswego.
That would be amazing if it was.
Yeah.
I thought.
Are you sure this isn't something we drunk made up?
I mean, I definitely could have made this up. Can somebody? Hopefully, we'll get some comments on this, and somebody will tell me that kid
Dear
is
internet.
So
find it
wrong.
There should definitely be that ferry.
That
would be like a 10-hour ferry. You'd be like, I'm still on this boat. Shit. Can you bring your car? Oh yeah, I want this ferry now.
Yeah. Well, there is a ferry that goes from up, a bay across, into Canada.
Well, that's like 10 feet.
Right. But it's not.
You can accidentally end up in Canada if you're in the thousands.
Oh, and they're so mad if you're doing that.
Especially if you're
fishing.
Especially if you have beer on the boat.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Well,
That happened.
No, we did have beer on the boat. Never mind.
That happened with one of the fishing trips I was up there. One of the other boat, because it was like a guided fishing tour type thing. The other boat just crossed over the border, and the captain was just like, "Oh shit."
Yeah. No, it's
lines up,
legit.
boys, and like quickly got back across the border. And he was just like, "What?" And he's just like, A, we were just in Canada, and B, like we had beer on the boat, so that would have been like all your beer would have been their beer, and we would have all been in jail for the rest of the day.
That's crazy. There was that story. I don't know which lake it was. What's the lake that is over in Michigan?
One time, Canada made me stay in Canada because I was too drunk. Did I ever tell you that story?
Every time I try to cross the border, when I try to walk across the border from
That right there.
yeah.
You look like the
Niagara
fucking
Falls.
Unabomber. I would not let you walk across my
First
border
off-
either.
First off, I did not look like this when I was walking across the border. Second off, they always ask me if I ever lived
You did
in
used to
Florida.
be nice, neatly trimmed. In Florida?
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, did you live in Florida?" I'm like, "No."
Are you Florida man?
I've been asked this 3
They
times.
thought you were a
at
Florida
the
man.
border. And every single the third time I was just like, "So what's wrong with my ID that I've been asked this 3 times?"
There
And
is
the
some
person was just like,
he's on to us.
"Nothing.
There is
You're
so-
fine.
yeah,
Go
there-
ahead." And
so
I'm like,
there is some Florida drug runner that looks just like neatly beard trimmed to you.
That's hilarious.
Listen, I don't know.
That's
like,
great.
That kept coming up. Like, it definitely happened 3 times while I was in college. And I'll like hand my ID over. They'd look at it. They'd be like, "So, when you lived in Florida," and I was just like, "I never lived in Florida." And they'd be like, I'm like, does everybody type one number wrong on my ID or something when they're looking up my stuff? I don't know.
That's interesting.
But it happened more than once that I actually asked them the last time, and then they just like went back to typing, and they're like, "All right, you can go."
There was some story years ago of like all these like 50 people or 100, something like that. It was like some big party. They were all drinking, hanging out in this lake, and they were all like out on like tubes, lounging in the current and the wind picked up and blew them into Canada, and they were all hammered on these inner tubes and now in Canada. And it was like a big story because the Canadian government didn't penalize them or arrest them or anything. They just like got them all on boats and got them back over to America. I forget what lake that was though. Anyways, so I never.
It probably shouldn't be like. There's probably only like 3 options
Yeah.
in Michigan to figure it out, but I'm not going to bring up a map right now.
Yeah, Superior. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't a Great Lake. It was something. Anyways, I did that cycling trip, and that was going to be like my big test. I think it was Columbus Day weekend or the week after I was going to do it. And it was going to be my big test because then the next summer was the bike race. And so I got on my bike one morning, and I set out, and I had everything with me, and I rode my bike up to A Bay. It's a little over 100 miles. The ferry had just shut down like the day before. So I was going to have to like walk over that big ass bridge. And
That is a big bridge.
yeah, I did call ahead.
Do you have bridgeophobia?
Yes, I'm terrified of heights.
And this is where your
Definitely
biking
don't.
career ended.
Yes,
Definitely don't
literally.
do the
Yeah.
local
Literally.
bridge. Then.
So yeah,
I get a little squirrely about driving over the bridges. But I always have had a fascination with walking over them. I've never done it because, like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I get halfway and have like a fucking panic attack.
Yeah.
Sorry, now I'm increasing my.
I've walked over
language,
the Brooklyn Bridge, but before, but that's I think you walk in the middle for most of that. Right?
Yeah. Well, I went to. I saw the Golden Gate Bridge and like we drove over that and I was like, this is a real bridge. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and that one to Wellesley Island in Canada, that feels like a real bridge too.
Yeah.
Like just because you're like going up
Yes.
forever. You're like, how high is this? It's a bridge. Like, what?
Yeah, I could
one-
not.
I guess physics come into it somehow.
What's
But,
the one in Niagara Falls? The Rainbow Bridge. Is the big
Yeah.
one,
yeah,
right?
the Rainbow Bridge, big
I've
one
walked
too.
across that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3
yeah.
times, I
After
believe.
being accused of being a Floridian.
Yeah, I've that had a very interesting story in front of me at one point, and as I walked across the bridge, I think the first time ever with the group that was not me, not our group that was walking across, but yeah, like when you're walking across that bridge in January, and the wind whipping off of just like ice particles off the falls, like right into your eyes at 45 miles an hour. You're like, why am I doing this? Oh yeah, that's right, because I'm 19 and I can drink over there. That's why I'm doing this.
Oh,
That's right. I forgot about
yes.
those.
Trip to Canada Day.
We
Yeah.
would get dropped off. One of my exes had a friend that went to Niagara, so we would get dropped off at Niagara University, and we'd walk across the bridge. And then we'd drink in Niagara Falls for the night, and we'd come back over. And
Niagara Falls is such a shitty little island place. Like it's because like the
I don't like to speak ill of anywhere in New York, but man,
Yeah.
it is not the greatest place.
yeah, because there's like the trash, the dump is there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not a fun place to be for sure.
Unless you're, getting really drunk at the Applebee's.
Yeah, right at that Applebee's. So back to the original question. Yeah, that's probably I would have about. There's some nights I would go in there and have like 3 or 4. Some 1 or 2 nights I went in there I had like 6 or 7 and a shot, and half price apps. So
Yeah, all right, man. I feel like
you've been missing out, man.
maybe I gotta go get hammered
Well,
at an
first
Applebee's.
off, you're normally in bed well before first half-price apps.
What time
go.
does half price apps start?
I think it starts at 9 or 10. So you're in
Yeah, it's
bed
a little
most
dicey
of the
for
time.
me.
So there's
little man
very
now.
little chance you're going to get half-price apps.
All right, all right.
I love
Unless
how
you've
this
been wired up.
podcast conversation went from like kind of serious. How did you get started? Let's talk about beer to all of a sudden walking across bridges and half price apps at
Well,
Applebee's.
I mean, I don't know what you wanted to talk about today, but this is what I wanted to talk
Oh yeah,
about.
we can steer wherever you want. but
Bridge and
man,
half-price
for-
apps.
You let me ask a question. You should have just shut me down.
You want to talk about 25-cent wings?
50-cent wings. I mean, at Limp Lizard, they've been doing 50-cent wings, and
That is the
That's
best.
the smoked
That
wings,
is
right?
the smoothest
Yeah,
plug
either
I've
or.
ever seen.
yeah, you can do the smoked
Also,
wings.
yeah, their
or-
wings are freaking delicious.
I'm glad I set them up for
can't
that.
even.
Like it
Yeah.
was like it was planned. It's on the.
yeah,
You'd
it's
think
on
it
the
was on
TV.
the screen.
no,
over
thank
there,
you
like,
to
on
our
the agenda.
sponsor.
But I will.
Shout out to Nick.
It's wild to see. I was working the cash register the other day, and somebody called in and they ordered like 4 orders of wings, and I plugged it like it was like $20, and I was like, "There's something wrong with the
I've
machine.
hit the wrong button.
What happened?"
So
And
wait, they called in the order, so you can call in the 50-cent wings.
you can call in. The phone number is 315. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so
Get
you can
your
call in.
wings now. But
Well,
wait,
first off, now I'm calling in 50
Yeah,
cent
like, yeah.
wings, so I don't have to eat there.
When
I'm
is
gonna
this
get
50
50
when
cent
is this
wings
50 cent
every
wings?
single
At
day.
North Syracuse, when it opens back up, you can get them to go. On a doggo, you have to sit down.
This is a note to my sister who lives in my old house in Crestwood.
Yeah, because he would get people that
do they do it for lunch?
he only does. Yeah, it's all day on weekends.
Wait, all day on weekends?
Yeah, Saturdays and Sundays for football.
So when football ends, the steal ends?
I don't know what he's gonna do because like originally it started as we won the Buffalo Wing Fest. Let's celebrate with 50-cent wings. To now there's doing it every
No,
weekend.
it's just 50. Now I got to change the POS system and I got to change the discount dates, and I just don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's been interesting. But 50-cent wings, not 25 cents, but 50 cents.
We used to go to a place I used to go to a place in Oswego. You were gone by the time we filmed this, but 25-cent wings at Greens at the top of the hill in Oswego, and $5 pitchers on Monday nights.
Wow.
And
Yeah, I probably should have said that Oswego had a lot to do with us opening a brewery too.
Is that how you two met?
Lots of practicing drinking. No, we worked at the same ice rink in Cicero for a minute, and then I went to college and was like, yeah, never go see that dude again. And
good
and
luck
then,
with that.
And then yeah, right. And then the next year, I was outside my dorm room and Kevin walked by. I was like, oh hey, what's up, dude? And shortly thereafter, we became college roommates.
his roommate really couldn't throw a football all that well, so I had to replace him.
Yeah, that's what it was.
I can just see, I can kind of picture that. I can see Rockney outside, and then Kevin walks by with like maybe a skateboard and a hacky sack or a skateboard and a
And
You
it was
wish I
a
was
baseball
that
bag.
cool.
He was going to baseball tryouts,
Yes.
and
Should have made that
yeah,
baseball
said, hey,
team.
yeah,
Good
you're
thing I
still
didn't,
upset
though.
about it, sure. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. And that's how now, look at you today, Willow Rock from those early days at Oswego.
Should have just let him walk by.
Yeah.
If only.
That's when you
know,
had the
right?
dream for half in the bag. Is that how that all worked out?
I was
one late night.
only half in the bag most of college.
Yeah, no, I think half in the bag might have came. I was
Half in the bag
one
came-
of those parties that Kevin referenced at his house. I was pretty pretty lit. And I just remember kind of grabbing Kevin and shaking him and saying, like, this is what we're going to do with our life.
You had a thing about shaking people back then.
Well, you got to understand, we had a really big, strong MMA friend, and I was the only other tall person in our crew, which automatically like made him think that like I was the guy that needed to know all his other MMA moves. So like I was being constantly put into MMA things, which I don't know anything about. And then like, I had to pay it on down the line, Yeah, so
Like that time you picked Tim up and shook him and made him throw up.
Hey, sorry, Tim.
Tim.
Well,
Tim Shore?
No. So our friend Tim McNally,
Roommate in
roommate from college again. We went out to Blue Tusk. We were having a great night, and we did shots to end the night. And
Tim did shots to end his night.
Oh, I had a shot. You did have a shot?
Huh?
I had a shot.
Yeah. Tim's night ended after.
Oh,
he did
right.
the
No,
shot.
our night didn't.
The rest of
Yes,
us stayed
correct.
in the bar and continued to drink for an hour.
No, I got
while the
kicked
bouncer-
out. No, I got kicked out immediately.
Oh,
so,
you got kicked out too?
Yeah, so I was really excited. We did these shots. So,
I was just happy to see him.
yeah, I was just happy to see Tim, and like, I just picked him up and like, I love you, shook him a little bit, and he immediately went and threw up. And
Which is not out of the case for Tim.
no, it's very on brand. So like, I went back to go to the bar to get a drink, and the bouncer was like, "You gotta go," and I was like, "Oh, surely you're not pointing at me. I must be standing in front of some miscreant." And no, it was me, and that's the only time I've ever been kicked out of a bar. So I just stood outside, and I think one of you brought me a beer. Probably you. Thank you. And
Probably me.
and then I just sat there and just waited.
Wouldn't have been anybody else. Maybe Dan.
Waited
Dan
until
might have thought about it.
someone came in a car and got
I
us.
wouldn't have bought it for you, but
Oh, I might have still had it. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
yeah, Tim did not fare well.
Tim
with shots.
Tim was outside with me pretty quickly.
He had a adult timeout, is what he called it, when all of his friends would still be inside the bar drinking while he was sitting outside with the bouncer because he had been kicked out. But the bouncer's just like, "You're fine. You're not going to do anything. You're a tiny little man."
He did have some good friendships with the bouncers, though. I remember him telling fondly. A lot of hey, how you doing?
They would get him
coming
waters.
into the bar.
Yeah.
It's good.
So how come with like craft breweries there isn't much of like a drunk culture, like a really we're gonna go after it drinking culture?
So we
I think
did.
it speaks to the time of the day most people drink at the breweries. I feel like people don't normally turn it up that much during the week to begin with.
Yeah.
And then kind of on the weekends, like our busiest time's kind of in the middle of the afternoon. Like I'm not going to say they're pregame, but it's like, it's more of a travel thing. It's like, I'm bringing my kids, I'm going to have a couple of drinks, we'll eat at the food truck. If there's one there, we'll bring food in if there isn't. And it's just not really a good drinking scene. Like I said earlier, it's just not like people aren't out to do that to get drunk. They're kind of just out there and it might happen.
Yeah.
But
Is that like areas for growth of local breweries? Do you think that's one of them is like creating more of like let's get drunk culture?
I don't
think anyone wants to invite that upon themselves. I mean, thinking back to those crazy days at 2 a.m, I don't think anyone was happy, that we were doing what we were doing. Maybe the bartenders after close when they were counting tips, but we did that as 21, 22-year-olds.
And that's just not our crowd.
And I don't think that's what overlaps with a lot of the craft beer scene nowadays. I remember, that Blue Tusk night, and every night we went, I remember my favorite beer was whatever was on the $3 it needs to go pour. So, you know what I mean? It was more of like the mystery tap. So, it was more of a value conscious beer purchasing than it was, all right, I'm here to, have some quality beverages and really try to figure out stylistically what I like. Maybe it started like that for one or two, but then, by 2 a.m, it's all right. I got $6 left in my wallet and I'm not done yet. Let's go.
Yeah. I just don't think that that's an area that any brewery really wants to promote.
Yeah.
Anyways, unless you're kind of on that fringe of brewery bar.
Yeah.
Like if you were a brew pub, you had food, and you had a full liquor license as well as your own beer, like you had 6 taps on because you didn't have a huge system, and then you had domestics on, that type of stuff, and you wanted to push that limit, I think that's where you would go. But your typical tap room, I don't think you want that, because I think it changes the atmosphere.
Yeah.
It makes people feel uncomfortable, and like the sooner you get to something like that, the sooner you end up with somebody like that in the middle of the afternoon. And then all of a sudden it doesn't feel like a place that you want to bring your 2 kids to, or you want to like hang out in, because then you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, for me, craft beers always have been about having a good time, and then as us as brewery owners, having a space to facilitate a good time. And I think part of that is being healthy and safe, and having a place where there isn't just people drunk and falling all over the place. That's not when you see stories of neighborhood associations rising up against new breweries opening, like they always like, what about the drunks? And like, I think everyone, regardless, beer, food, whatever, everyone is a much more conscious consumer nowadays than we were, even just 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Let alone 20. And
pre-COVID,
yeah, and
everybody seems to stay a less amount of time now than what they used to.
well, not even that, just people want to ensure that they're going to be able to have the best amount of time for their hard-earned dollar. And I think when you're going out, and I think, like you were saying, we get busy in the afternoon, stuff like that. People want to be able to ensure that they're going to have a good time and be able to remember what they did and what they enjoyed, and continue on with the rest of their day. So
Yeah. Everybody's still got stuff to do at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like,
we all busy.
Yeah, I mean, I do get that. I mean, I'm not really, I'm 36 now with a kid. We're not.
you got a kid?
Got a kid.
This has not come up before.
Got a little babes. Yeah, little babes. 2 months today.
What?
Yeah.
Congratulations, little Anthony.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Number 5.
Right? Isn't he Anthony Tringle the 5th?
Oh, he is the 5th. Yeah.
See.
He is. I mean, he's not the
You got
5th,
one
but
full-
he's.
you got
There's
one
5
full
of them.
hand.
Yeah, there's 5 of them for sure. There's five Anthony Tringales in our family. Yeah. No, we definitely. I mean, I don't get. I mean, even the past few years, the times that I would go get drunk would be if we went to like one of the beer festivals or somebody's wedding, friend's wedding. I think last January we were at a friend's wedding. The night before, I had like 12 double bourbons. I had a lot of bourbon that night.
That's a few.
I had a lot of bourbon that night. Maybe it wasn't 12, but that was probably the last time that I got drunk. And yeah, definitely I get that as you get older. It's just, obviously working for you all and then like doing stuff for other breweries in town with Eat Local New York. Like I'm thinking, how do you really increase beer sales? And do you try to get the one person to drink more? Or are you trying to appeal to like that drunk culture, not drunk culture, but that kind of like party, come get a 12-pack, go through it this weekend culture? What are you trying to really kind of go after with that?
You see a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
I mean, you see some breweries, kind of have different events and stuff that might be more party-oriented,
Yeah.
Whatever. It's whatever, fits your vibe and fits what you're doing. Like, I think there's always a place to go, have a crazy time and get sloshed and whatever. And then there's a time to go and have a beer and watch a football game and have a bunch of beers and watch a football game.
Yeah.
And, in regards to increasing sales, I don't think the answer's ever been get that person to drink more. I think it's always been get more people to drink.
Yeah, you
any.
want more
Yeah.
people drinking more things, because ultimately that starts to push the word of mouth more than 20 people just drinking 40 beers.
Yeah.
And the more touch you have, whether or not it's not even really a table turn, because I'm happy to see people sit there for a long time and drink beers and enjoy themselves. But it's just one of those, you want more people coming in on a more consistent basis, whether or not like there's Thursday regulars and Friday regulars and Saturday regulars, or there's, the people that show up 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you see some of the most successful places do that through a variety of things. You can have a party day, you can have a board game, you can have all these different things that appeal to different groups of people. But I think ultimately your goal is to accommodate the widest variety of people.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. For everybody who's
Thanks for telling me your Applebee's story.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, you know what? I was more interested in the bike riding story that got us to Bridges.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
That one was
and,
very interesting.
I'm wondering, are you planning on riding the Empire State Trail once it's completed? Or?
I think it is completed, isn't it?
Probably. There's some little things that are just
Yeah.
path, there's not an actual thing it's gonna go down this street and then this
Yeah.
street to get back onto the path.
There is a bike ride that goes from, I think, Buffalo to Albany. And
Yeah, that's the Empire State Trail, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah. And but there's a group that has put it together, business, and you pay to be a part of it. And it's not. I don't think it's really meant for experienced hardcore distance cyclists. It's meant for that avid bicyclist, And the person who probably does 20 miles a week, maybe, or 10 miles on the weekend, that sort of a person. But you can pay. So they have a support vehicle. They do have a support vehicle that goes with you, but for tires and chains and that kind of stuff. But
Heart attacks.
yeah. But you can also pay heart attacks. But you can also pay for them to go ahead and you can rent a tent and food and that kind of stuff. And that support, they'll go up to the next campsite and make sure when you show up you have a tent and everything's ready.
Go get some Five Guys for me.
Yeah. So
You can find the local Applebee's.
Yeah.
Maybe Grubhub it.
yeah. I always said I needed to do I wanted to do those sort of things like that bike race before we had kids. And obviously that didn't happen.
Oh no! Do you feel like there are some opportunities have now faded away for you?
There definitely are, and I think that just comes with parenthood in general. I mean,
Any growth?
yeah. I mean, I don't. It's not that I'm sitting at home I can't believe this kid's keeping me from doing this stuff. But somebody texted me the other night. I sent a picture to two friends from the funny picture from when we were at Kitty Hoynes 4 months ago at midnight. And they were, their response was, "We got to go out and do that again." And I was like, "Yeah, you guys can FaceTime me while you're there, because it's not going to happen anytime soon. I'm not going to be out until 12, 1 o'clock, or even 9 o'clock on a weeknight, on any night if I can help it." So some of that stuff has definitely changed with parenthood, and I'm sure that'll change again.
I have different stories.
I'm sure that'll change again as I get older, as the kid gets older.
Well, I think it's always about the family dynamic too.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily just it's how you feel comfortable within your family
Yeah.
and how you feel comfortable within everything. Obviously I'm bartending a couple of days a week or whatever, and I'm not getting home before 9 o'clock.
Right.
And then I'm still playing hockey and volleyball, and my wife's great that she's at home and she's
Yeah.
supportive that I'm allowed to go out and do those. But those are my two things that I really do.
Yeah.
I'm not, other than bartending, which is part of the job,
Right.
and playing volleyball and hockey, I'm not really doing anything else unless the kids and her are coming with me.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm out at Kitty Hoynes doing shots at
Right.
1 a.m.
Yeah.
You're not still doing Applebee's shots?
No, we get Applebee's to go.
Do they still do half price apps to go?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
All right.
All the half price stuff it's to get you inside, to get you to
Well,
drink.
then we're back to 50-cent wings at Limp Lizard, today's sponsor. Please call at.
And with that, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.